Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In Genoa City, tensions reached a boiling point as Jack Abbott meticulously orchestrated a new scheme, one that aimed directly at the heart of Victor and Nikki's fragile yet storied marriage, a union that had weathered countless storms but now faced perhaps its most insidious threat yet, for Jack, who had long held grudges against his half-brother Victor, recognized that the key to destabilizing Victor was not attacking his empire directly but targeting the woman who had stood by him through decades of corporate battles, betrayals, and near-fatal crises, and so Jack began subtly planting seeds of doubt and miscommunication, exploiting every small misstep, every quiet disagreement, and even moments of fatigue or stress to magnify potential cracks, all the while presenting a facade of concern and support that would make Victor question his own instincts, as Nikki, ever loyal yet perceptive, began noticing minor inconsistencies in Jack's behavior, seeing the too timely advice, the seemingly innocent questions about her feelings, the casual mentions of Victor's past mistakes, and though she initially brushed these off as typical Jack meddling, the cumulative effects started to gnaw at her, igniting feelings of insecurity and vulnerability that Jack cleverly nurtured, for he knew that emotional erosion was far more dangerous than a direct confrontation, and in parallel, Jack leveraged his media connections to subtly influence public perception, ensuring that rumors of Victor's coldness, potential infidelity, and ruthless business tactics surfaced at just the right moments, each strategically timed to coincide with social events or high-profile corporate meetings where Nikki might overhear whispers or encounter press inquiries, and Victor, immersed in the relentless demands of running Newman Enterprises, remained largely unaware of the psychological battlefield being constructed around him, focused instead on closing deals, managing crises, and maintaining a facade of control that Jack was determined to undermine, leading to a series of seemingly innocuous interactions that were anything but, as Jack would casually bring up past arguments, remind Nikki of moments when Victor's decisions had hurt her emotionally, and even insinuate that Victor's loyalty to his company sometimes overshadowed his commitment to her, all calculated to provoke doubt, spark emotional distance, and test the strength of a bond that had survived affairs, corporate sabotage, and even life-threatening danger, while Nikki, internally conflicted, struggled to balance her instinct to trust Victor with the creeping uncertainty that Jack had so cleverly sown, leading to private moments of reflection, whispered late-night worries, and contemplative walks through the mansion where memories of their past triumphs and tribulations mingled with the fear that something as intangible as doubt could unravel everything she had fought for alongside Victor. And amidst this carefully woven tapestry of manipulation, Victor began to sense subtle shifts in Nikki's demeanor, noticing the slight hesitation in her voice, the lingering looks of contemplation, and the occasional distant sadness in her eyes, yet his natural confidence and preoccupation with business affairs made him hesitant to confront Jack directly, a hesitation that Jack exploited further, organizing chance encounters that positioned him as a sympathetic listener, a concerned friend, and a subtle adversary to Victor simultaneously, ensuring that every word he spoke, every question he asked, and every story he recounted was carefully calibrated to create tension and mistrust, while the rest of Genoa City, oblivious to the psychological warfare unfolding, continued their own dramas and intrigues, occasionally intersecting with the Abbott-Newman rivalry in ways that Jack could harness to amplify his impact, whether through mutual friends, corporate associates, or media outlets eager for scandal. And in this environment, Nikki's inner turmoil deepened as she began confiding in select confidants about her uncertainty, carefully choosing who to reveal her doubts to, while Jack, ever the opportunist, used these confidences to subtly redirect narratives, manipulate perceptions, and craft situations where Nikki might feel isolated or unsupported by Victor, leading to a crescendo of emotionally charged confrontations, private reflections, and strategic interventions, all designed to test the very foundation of Victor and Nikki's marriage. And as the weeks progressed, the tension escalated, reaching a point where both Victor and Nikki were forced to confront not just Jack's overt meddling, but the insidious ways in which doubt, mistrust, and emotional manipulation could seep into even the strongest relationships, prompting moments of raw honesty, vulnerable admissions, and unexpected alliances, as they navigated the delicate balance between personal loyalty, romantic commitment, and the ever-present threat of Jack's scheming mind, setting the stage for dramatic showdowns, explosive revelations, and the quintessential twists that had long defined the legacy of the young and the restless, where no victory was permanent, every alliance was precarious, and the line between love and strategy blurred in ways that left audiences breathless, captivated, and eagerly anticipating the next twist in the intricate dance of love, loyalty, and ambition that defined Victor and Nikki's enduring saga in Genoa City. As Jack continued his subtle siege on Victor and Nikki's marriage, he began to manipulate not only the couple's direct interactions but also the web of relationships surrounding them, understanding that in Genoa City, no action occurred in isolation and every friend, foe, and business associate could be a conduit for influence, and so he targeted key figures who might unwittingly feed into his plan, from Cain and Lily to Ashley and Phyllis, planting suggestions, fostering minor disagreements, and subtly nudging conversations in directions that would reinforce Nikki's growing uncertainty, all the while ensuring that Victor remained oblivious to the full scope of Jack's maneuvering, preoccupied as he was with the relentless demands of his empire, from mergers and acquisitions to public relations crises, each of which Jack quietly leveraged to insert doubt, timing leaks and whispers at precisely the moments Victor's attention was divided, creating an environment in which Nikki began questioning not only Victor's decisions but also her own judgment, as Jack's insinuations, though carefully veiled in concern, seemed to resonate with her deepest insecurities, particularly regarding the recurring theme of Victor's perceived emotional distance, a trait that had surfaced in moments of crisis over the years but was now magnified through Jack's calculated interventions, and in response, Nikki oscillated between confronting Victor directly, retreating into private contemplation, and confiding in select friends whose loyalty to her she trusted implicitly, even as Jack subtly observed these interactions, analyzing which confidences he could manipulate, which moments of hesitation he could exploit, and which revelations he could weaponize to further destabilize the marriage, and as the days passed, Victor began to notice changes in Nikki's behavior, hesitations, fleeting glances, and subtle avoidance, but his instinct to protect the stability of their relationship conflicted with his natural pride and tendency to assume competence and loyalty, leaving him vulnerable to Jack's psychological ploys, which included staged chance meetings, veiled compliments, and the occasional carefully timed reminder of Victor's past mistakes, each designed to plant tiny seeds of doubt in Nikki's mind, seeds that would grow into persistent questioning of her husband's love, judgment, and commitment, and as this tension simmered, other Genoa City residents, unaware of the orchestration behind the scenes, began to react to the ripple effects, with Ashley noticing a quiet melancholy in Nikki, Phyllis picking up on an unusual defensiveness from Victor, and Cain and Lily speculating on the subtle shifts in both families' dynamics, all of which Jack monitored with the precision of a strategist, understanding that each reaction could either accelerate his plan or require delicate recalibration. And in tandem with these social maneuvers, Jack also launched a media campaign designed to further erode Victor's public image, releasing carefully selected tidbits about corporate controversies, charitable missteps, and personal misjudgments, timing them to appear coincidental yet impactful, ensuring that Nikki might stumble upon these headlines, feel conflicted, and consider Victor's reliability not just in business but in their personal life, while Victor, consumed by damage control and unaware of Jack's orchestration, failed to perceive the cumulative psychological pressure building on Nikki, which Jack counted on as a decisive advantage, knowing that doubt and emotional strain, once internalized, could be far more destructive than overt confrontation, and Nikki, torn between love, loyalty, and the creeping influence of Jack's subtle manipulations, began a series of late-night reflections, pacing the halls of their mansion, recalling past hardships, victories, and betrayals, questioning whether the enduring strength of her marriage could withstand such invisible pressures, and in these solitary moments memories of earlier betrayals, some real, some exaggerated by Jack's insinuations, surfaced, prompting introspection that was both cathartic and destabilizing, as she weighed the history of shared triumphs against the uncertainty Jack had so cleverly instilled. And during these hours Victor, too, wrestled with intuition and premonition, feeling that an undercurrent of tension was threatening to erode their bond, yet unable to identify the source or confront it effectively. And as the tension escalated, Jack escalated his efforts, arranging scenarios in which Nikki would witness minor but carefully staged disagreements, overhear selectively edited conversations, or receive advice from ostensibly trustworthy friends who had been subtly influenced to echo Jack's narrative, all calibrated to intensify her doubts without ever crossing the threshold of outright deception, while at the same time, Jack cultivated his own image as a concerned, morally upright observer, role that allowed him to manipulate perceptions both publicly and privately, positioning himself as an ally to Nikki and a critic of Victor in ways that seemed sincere yet were deeply self-serving. And within this intricate dance, minor incidents began to compound, such as Victor's slightly curt remarks misinterpreted by Nikki, accidental scheduling conflicts that seemed intentional, and public interactions that Jack leveraged to suggest emotional disengagement, each incident a carefully placed domino in a chain designed to destabilize trust and foster questioning of loyalty. And while Nikki struggled internally, Victor's natural confidence and habitual focus on business made him hesitant to confront the growing distance, even as friends and associates subtly hinted at the tension, some out of concern, others unknowingly echoing Jack's manipulations. And as this psychological siege progressed, Jack's tactics evolved, moving beyond subtlety into moments that bordered on provocation, such as orchestrating social gatherings in which conversations and observations would be overheard, timing meetings to coincide with Nikki's vulnerable moments, and introducing scenarios that highlighted Victor's past mistakes in emotionally charged ways, each calculated to elicit reflection, doubt, or even subtle resentment. And the emotional strain began to manifest in Nikki's demeanor, with fleeting glances, whispered hesitations, and occasional guarded responses becoming increasingly noticeable to Victor, yet interpreted by him through the lens of normal relational stress, creating a perfect environment for Jack to continue exerting influence without detection. And as the weeks unfolded, the emotional intensity escalated to the point where Nikki, despite her resilience and decades of experience navigating Genoa City's social and corporate minefields, found herself questioning fundamental aspects of her relationship, pondering whether love, loyalty, and shared history were sufficient to withstand the insidious pressures applied by Jack, whose understanding of human psychology and relational dynamics allowed him to exploit every nuance, hesitation, and memory to further his agenda. And as Jack's plan reached its crescendo, both Victor and Nikki were forced into a series of critical confrontations and emotional reckonings, private and public, which tested the depth of their bond, the clarity of their communication, and the resilience of their shared history, culminating in moments of raw honesty, confrontation, and revelation that defined the very essence of soap opera drama, leaving Genoa City residents, family members, and viewers alike on the edge of their seats, captivated by the unfolding saga. And as the narrative threads continued to intertwine, the subtle interplay of manipulation, loyalty, love, and strategic cunning demonstrated once again why Victor and Nikki's marriage, while tested endlessly by external and internal pressures, remained a central pillar of intrigue, passion, and narrative complexity in the enduring legacy of The Young and the Restless, where every whisper, glance, and decision could become a catalyst for explosive drama, and where Jack Abbott's machinations reminded all that in Genoa City, power was not just in wealth or influence, but in the ability to shape perception, erode certainty, and manipulate the very fabric of human emotion, leaving the audience breathless, riveted, and eager for each next twist in the relentless saga of love, betrayal, and survival at the heart of one of America's most iconic television dramas. As Jack Abbott's campaign to undermine Victor and Nikki's marriage intensified, he began to orchestrate increasingly sophisticated strategies, recognizing that in the intricate social ecosystem of Genoa City, even the smallest interaction could have rippling effects, and so he expanded his influence by engaging with peripheral characters whose loyalties and perceptions could be subtly manipulated to amplify the pressure on Nikki, and in doing so, he began coordinating with individuals like Phyllis Summers, whose complicated history with both Victor and Jack provided fertile ground for planting doubt, and Kane Ashby, whose involvement in business dealings with the Newman family made him a convenient conduit for misrepresented information. And by carefully curating each interaction, Jack ensured that Nikki would encounter a web of influences converging to create the illusion of Victor's emotional and moral failings, all while maintaining his public persona as a concerned, trustworthy observer, a role that allowed him to move freely between social gatherings, corporate meetings, and intimate conversations without revealing his underlying agenda. And this multi-pronged approach meant that Nikki, despite her intelligence and decades of experience navigating complex social and corporate environments, began to experience subtle but persistent emotional strain, noticing inconsistencies in Victor's behavior that were either exaggerated by Jack's manipulations or amplified by her own growing anxieties, and as she grappled with these feelings, her interactions with friends and family became increasingly layered with subtext, each word and gesture analyzed for hidden meaning. While Jack monitored these exchanges with keen precision, adjusting his tactics in real time to exploit any vulnerability or moment of hesitation, and the psychological pressure manifested in Nikki as a mixture of doubt, concern, and protective instinct, prompting her to consider whether her decades-long partnership with Victor, a union that had survived corporate battles, betrayals, and even life-threatening crises, could truly withstand this new, invisible form of attack. And as these internal conflicts unfolded, Victor, immersed in the relentless demands of running Newman Enterprises and addressing public scrutiny, remained largely unaware of the magnitude of Jack's campaign, interpreting Nikki's moments of hesitation as natural responses to stress rather than signals of manipulated perception, and this disconnect allowed Jack to continue his strategy unimpeded, orchestrating scenarios where small miscommunications, timing conflicts, and selective revelations would compound Nikki's uncertainty, creating a psychological landscape in which even minor disagreements carried disproportionate emotional weight. And in this environment, Jack further leveraged the media to reinforce his narrative, releasing calculated reports on corporate controversies, philanthropic missteps, and Victor's perceived neglect, each item chosen to coincide with social gatherings or private moments where Nikki was likely to encounter them, ensuring that doubt would seep into her consciousness gradually yet persistently. And as the tension escalated, the dynamic between Victor and Nikki evolved into a delicate dance, with each trying to interpret the other's intentions while contending with the invisible influence of Jack's manipulations. And amidst this backdrop, Genoa City itself became a stage on which the drama played out, with friends, colleagues, and rivals responding to shifts in behavior, gossip, and public perception in ways that Jack anticipated and exploited, amplifying his influence even further. And Nikki, ever perceptive but emotionally burdened, began to confide selectively in trusted allies, weighing the wisdom of sharing doubts with Victor against the fear that doing so might create unnecessary conflict or lend credence to Jack's insinuations, while Jack, observing these confidences, used them to refine his approach, identifying which strategies elicited maximum emotional impact and which relationships could be leveraged for further disruption. And as the days turned into weeks, the psychological landscape became increasingly complex, with Nikki vacillating between trust, affection, and cautious skepticism, moments of clarity and doubt intertwined, leaving her emotionally exhausted, yet determined to understand the truth behind the mounting tension. And Victor, noticing subtle changes in Nikki's demeanor, the slight hesitation in her voice, the contemplative pauses, the fleeting expressions of uncertainty, began to sense that something external was influencing their dynamic. Yet lacking concrete evidence, he hesitated to confront Jack directly, a hesitation that Jack cleverly anticipated and used to further his campaign, orchestrating situations that placed Victor in reactive positions, exposing him to scenarios where his natural assertiveness or distraction could be interpreted negatively. And in tandem with these maneuvers, Jack also began to manipulate past memories, subtly reminding Nikki of prior conflicts, moments of disappointment, and times when Victor's decisions had caused her emotional pain, framing these memories within the context of the current tension to magnify their impact. And as Nikki reflected on these recollections, her confidence in her own judgment wavered, creating an internal dialogue where love, loyalty, and doubt intersected, each thought analyzed and reanalyzed for hidden meaning, while Jack, watching from the periphery, adjusted his approach dynamically, inserting new variables, orchestrating encounters, and guiding conversations to ensure maximum psychological impact. And even minor citywide events, such as charity galas, corporate announcements, and social gatherings, were leveraged as stages for subtle manipulation, with Nikki exposed to observations, comments, and scenarios designed to make her question Victor's attentiveness, priorities, and emotional availability, all while maintaining Jack's carefully cultivated image of neutrality and moral authority. And this constant interplay of strategy and emotion began to exact a toll on Victor as well, as he sensed a growing distance and tension from Nikki, leading him to question whether his own actions, words, or decisions had inadvertently caused the strain.